The forest was a labyrinth of ancient trees, their gnarled branches twisted together as if to guard the secrets buried deep within. The group of friends, Emma, Mark, Lucy, and Jake, had ventured into the woods on what was supposed to be a weekend camping trip. They were drawn by rumors of an old, forgotten village hidden somewhere in the heart of the forest, a place untouched by time and cloaked in mystery. The first signs of the village appeared late in the afternoon. As the sun dipped low, the forest's shadows grew long and restless. Emma was the first to spot the faint outline of a crumbling stone wall half covered in moss. "This must be it," she whispered, her voice tinged with both excitement and unease. The others gathered around, their eyes wide as they took in the sight before them, a narrow path, overgrown with weeds, leading into the heart of the forgotten village. The air grew colder as they approached. The once vibrant sounds of the forest, chirping birds, rustling leaves, were now eerily absent. It was as if the village existed in a bubble of silence, cut off from the world. Mark, the self-proclaimed skeptic of the group, tried to mask his unease with humor. "Looks like we've found the set of the next horror movie," he joked, though his laughter was hollow. The village was a collection of dilapidated wooden houses, their roofs caved in and windows shattered. A stone well stood at the center of the square, its edges chipped and worn. Lucy, always the curious one, stepped closer to examine the well. "Do you think anyone still lives here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not likely," Jake replied, his gaze fixed on one of the houses. Its door hung open, creaking slightly in the breeze. "This place looks like it's been abandoned for decades." As the sun disappeared completely, plunging the village into darkness, Emma felt a chill run down her spine. She turned to suggest they set up camp outside the village, but the words caught in her throat. In the distance, she saw a figure moving between the houses, its shape barely discernible in the dim light. "Did you see that?" she asked, her voice trembling. The others followed her gaze, but the figure was gone. Mark shook his head. "It's just your imagination," he said, though his tone lacked conviction. "Let's just set up camp and get some rest." Reluctantly, they pitched their tents near the village square. But sleep did not come easily. Strange noises echoed through the night. Soft whispers, the faint creak of footsteps on wooden floors. Emma lay awake, her heart pounding, as she tried to convince herself it was just the wind. But deep down, she knew something was watching them. Morning brought little relief. The village looked even more desolate in the harsh light of day. The friends gathered around the well, their faces pale from a restless night. "Did anyone else hear those noises?" Emma asked, breaking the uneasy silence. Jake nodded. "It sounded like someone walking around. But when I looked outside, there was no one there." Mark tried to brush it off. "Old houses creak. It's probably just the wood settling." But even he couldn't hide the fear in his eyes. Lucy suggested exploring the village in daylight, hoping to dispel some of the unease. The group agreed, though their steps were hesitant. They moved from house to house, peering through broken windows and pushing open creaky doors. Inside, they found remnants of lives long gone, a rusted stove, a child's doll covered in dust, a diary with pages yellowed by time. It was in one of these houses that they made their first unsettling discovery. Emma found a mirror hanging on the wall, its surface cracked but still reflecting the room behind her. As she stared into it, she saw a figure standing just over her shoulder, a woman in a tattered dress, her face obscured by shadows. Emma spun around, but the room was empty. "What is it?" Lucy asked, noticing Emma's pale face. I thought I saw someone," Emma stammered. "In the mirror." The others exchanged uneasy glances but said nothing. They continued their exploration, though the sense of dread grew with every step. The village felt alive, as if it were watching them, waiting for something. As they returned to the square, Jake pointed out a strange pattern in the dirt around the well. It looked like footprints, but they were faint and uneven, as if the person who made them had been dragging their feet. The tracks led away from the well and disappeared into the forest. "Maybe someone really does live here," Lucy suggested, though she didn't sound convinced. "Or maybe it's something else," Mark muttered, his skepticism wavering. That night, the whispers returned, louder and more distinct. The friends huddled together in one tent, their flashlights flickering as they listened to the eerie sounds. At one point, Emma thought she heard her name being called, the voice soft and mournful. "Do you hear that?" she asked, her voice shaking. The others nodded. They all heard it, not just whispers, but voices speaking words they couldn't quite understand. It sounded like a chorus of the past, fragments of conversations lost to time. By the third day, the friends were on edge. They decided to leave the village, but as they packed up their gear, they noticed something strange. The path they had taken to enter the village was gone. In its place was a dense wall of trees, their branches interwoven like a barrier. Panic set in. "How is this possible?" Jake demanded, his voice rising. "We came in this way. We should be able to leave the same way." "Maybe we just got turned around," Mark suggested, though his tone was desperate rather than reassuring. They spent hours searching for an exit, but every path led them back to the village. As the sun began to set, they realized they were trapped. "This place doesn't want us to leave," Lucy said, her voice trembling. "It's like it's alive." That night, the shadows came to life. As the friends huddled in their tent, they saw figures moving outside, vague shapes that flickered like images on an old film reel. The figures walked the streets of the village, their movements jerky and unnatural. Some carried baskets or tools, while others simply wandered aimlessly. Emma mustered the courage to step outside. The others followed, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. As they approached the figures, they realized they weren't ghosts. These were memories, echoes of the people who had once lived in the village, replaying their final moments over and over. One figure, a young girl clutching a stuffed animal, turned to face them. Her eyes were hollow, her expression vacant. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no sound came out. Instead, the air was filled with a high-pitched whine that made the friends cover their ears. "We need to get out of here," Mark said, his voice barely audible over the noise. "Now." But there was no escape. The village had them, and it wasn't letting go. Desperation gave way to fear as the friends realized the full extent of their predicament. The village was a trap, a place where time and reality twisted into something incomprehensible. They spent the next day searching for clues, hoping to find some way to break free. In one of the houses, Lucy found an old journal. Its pages were filled with the ramblings of a man who had once lived in the village. "They're watching," one entry read. "They're always watching. We're their prisoners now." Another entry described a ritual, an offering made at the well to appease the shadows. The friends debated whether to attempt it. "It's just superstition," Mark argued. But with no other options, they decided to try. As night fell, they gathered around the well. Lucy read aloud from the journal, her voice shaking. They followed the instructions, placing items of personal significance into the well. Emma's necklace, Jake's compass, Mark's lighter, and Lucy's bracelet. When the last item was dropped, the ground trembled, and the whispers grew deafening. The shadows emerged once more, but this time they surrounded the friends, their hollow eyes fixed on them. One by one, the shadows stepped forward, placing their hands on the friends' shoulders. A flood of memories surged through them. Pain, fear, loss. They saw the villagers' final moments, their lives consumed by an ancient curse that bound them to this place. The friends awoke the next morning with no memory of how the night had ended. But the village was different. The shadows were gone, and the oppressive silence had lifted. They found a new path leading out of the village, and this time, it did not disappear. As they walked away, Emma glanced back. The village was fading, its edges blurring as if it were being erased from existence. She felt a pang of sorrow, knowing they had witnessed something no one else ever would. But the memories lingered. Even as they returned to the world beyond the forest, they couldn't shake the feeling that the village was still with them, a shadow in their minds. They had escaped, but they would never be free. In the days that followed, each of them began to notice strange things. Fleeting shadows in the corner of their vision, whispers in empty rooms. The curse of the forgotten village was not so easily left behind. And as the friends drifted apart, each consumed by their own haunting memories, they realized the truth. Some places are meant to be forgotten, but they never truly let go.